Hey, y'all are in luck today. It is old-fashioned peach pie with a sourdough crust the Cowboy way. Come on by.
Big day.
Yes, it is. Pie
Big
day.
day at the wagon.
Pie day. I like a pie day, sugar. But guess what the crust is made out of?
Let me guess, Kent. Sourdough?
Sourdough pie crust.
And sourdough's a big staple on the chuck wagon back in the 1800s, and we still use it today. We're not going to get into the specifics of our sourdough because we've done that a lot. We'll link to our starter recipe and some other stuff below the video. So we're just going to get right into the pie making of it. What makes the starter a great crust for pie?
It makes a good, hearty, flaky crust.
Yeah.
And it stands up well. It's something you can sort of punish and get by with it. One of the biggest treats on ranches is when you could break out an actual pie. I'm not talking a cobbler that just has crust on
like
top.
Like a homemade start to finish pie. Like you are pulling out the big guns.
That's right. So this is a little trick. You can either crack an egg in here and let that egg yolk run around in there, you know.
Yeah.
Or you can spray it. You know how hard Crisco is sometimes to get out of there, so it makes it a little easier.
That's a fun tip.
Hey, I'm all about fun tips, know what I mean? And it's just a cup of Crisco. And look how easy that peeled out of there. I mean, this is what you call a Cowboy tip. Now to that, my love, we're going to add 2.5 cups of flour. And then we're going to go just a little less the first time around because we can add some to it. Okay. You don't want to start out too dry. I used to have to do this with a fork when I was little. Got to get this lard. We'll end up with sort of a cracker crumb cornmeal consistency. Make sure you always pull that back out to the middle to get any excess flour that might be caked up over here on the side. And we're going to add just a sprinkling.
Now why are you adding more flour?
Because I know there's still some chunks of Crisco here that's good and greasy.
Oh, okay.
So I want to do I like it in my hand method. So just keep rubbing this between your hands till you make sure that most of that is pretty gone. I mean, this was a brand. Get you an apron. Tell you folks.
Put on my uniform.
We do have these aprons available on our website, as is much other stuff there at KentRollins.com. An infomercial snuck in, it did. And it'll make you cook even better than I can. So we're close as we can be. If you can
look like I worked. Yeah, there we go.
Now you act.
Woo!
Now people think you might have done something.
Hard to hit the wagon.
Yes, it is. 2.5 tablespoons of sugar. Pass me that cinnamon. It calls for about 1.5 teaspoons.
Now this is optional. So cinnamon would be great if you're doing like apple. Peach is good.
Apricot.
You don't have to put it in, but
we got to have a teaspoon of salt. And some of that there baking powder because we're going to put a teaspoon of it also in there.
Okay.
Now let's incorporate well. Okay.
So you're just tossing it in there with your hand?
Yes. Now comes the magic ingredient. And you know what that could be?
Let me guess.
What?
Is it sourdough?
Yes, ma'am.
And then I'm just going to drizzle it in here. Sourdough, depending on your climate and where you live, your consistency is going to be slightly different. So you want to start out with your sourdough is like a thin buttermilk. If you've got your sourdough and it's a little thick, add a little more water. If it's too thin, add a little flour till you get about a thin buttermilk consistency.
And then we're just going to fold. Now when I get it to this ball shape that I've been sort of spooning, and I love this spoon because it's good and cupped and it will get around the edges, I like to mash it just a tad. Make sure that everything's pulling back in there.
A little tacky, but not bad. So is that kind of what you're looking for?
We're after this to where it sort of holds together. But you don't want it to be dry. Dry pie crust ain't gonna be flaky.
Let me feel it.
We're gonna just go ahead and work it just a little.
Can I remove your bowl?
Yes. And I want you just to mash it gently with love. Okay? Just sort of flatten it out, bring it back in here. It's a little different than regular pie dough. Probably wouldn't be this wet.
Oh, really?
Just regular.
That's true. Yeah. If you chill this, will it hurt the sourdough?
Yes, sourdough.
Okay, so you can't chill this one.
My sourdough has never been put in an ice box. Okay. Flour your surface well, because things is going to want to stick. I used to be a potter a long time ago. Know what I mean? So what's next, folks? mash.
Let's split it and then we'll do the bottom and the top separately. And we're still definitely moist,
Yeah.
but you can...
That's the way we're going to keep it. And we got one of them magical husband beaters? Yes, we do. So, what are we going to do? Roll with gentle pressure. Try not to crack in here anywhere. Just keep rolling and keep rolling.
And one thing
rolling down the river. Rolling out some pie dough.
You guys know when you go to the store and you get the Pillsbury pie crust, and it is like super, super thin. We don't like to do pie crust that thin.
No, you can see if you pull the edge of this up here just a little, that's how thick it is. You take this here, pick it up off the pie dough. Oh my gosh, it made a circle.
We're going to cut it a little
like
wider
right
than that because it's got to come up the edge. So
yes. Pick it up, oh, so gently. Unroll cautiously.
The thicker your pie crust is, it's a little easier to handle specifically with a Dutch oven. And also when you're cooking it, a little thicker kind of gives you a little bit more of a heat buffer, and you won't be as apt to burn it as easily. So tell me, what are we using for the filling?
Today we are using some good home-grown peaches about that big around. And take them big old peaches, get us some water boiling over on Bertha, put them in there, let it come to a boil about 10 minutes, and then pull them off. It's going to make that skin come off there oh so easier. Put them in an ice bath, let them set another 10 minutes to where they will peel easy.
Okay.
Then we can peel them, slice them, and make our filling. What this needs now is some Bertha love. And we're going to take it over and let Bertha bring it to a boil, and we'll let it come to a pretty good boil, and then we're going to add one more secret ingredient. And you want to stir it pretty consistently. Things have thickened up to they're at the point to where now comes the magic ingredient. Did you hear him? He's bringing it to me. Wild turkey honey whiskey. How much? 1/8 quarter. I'm going to say about that much. I ain't going to let this cook long. It's boiling. It thinned it down just a tad, so we're going to let it thicken just a tad. If you're down on turkeys, and I hope you ain't, you could use hot damn cinnamon stops. You could use any kind of Fireball whiskey, something like that, and don't want to put it in there at all. Just take you some honey at this time and just put in there for a little extra added sweetness. It's this pouring method.
Got our little lip there, which is holding all that in there. We're on a spring or fall works on a ranch. We typically do, and it's kind of a tradition, is that we put the ranch's brand on the pie or cobbler or whatever we're making. Can I do in design?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Do you know what my design's going to be?
Probably going to be something to do with Nevada, if I was guessing.
When we're doing it in the Dutch oven, there's a little trick we're going to show you about how you know when it's done on the bottom. And part of that is you need to make sure that the bottom crust and the top crust are meeting, and you've crimped them a little bit.
What?
I'm going to give it a few more.
What would you call that? A Nevada pie?
I call that God's country.
Whoa, whoa. You can have an egg wash, or you can have some of that wonderful stuff called melted butter. You want to make sure you try to get on them sides where maybe some of that will go ahead and help that crimp.
A lot of people, and you may be one of these too, you've cooked a pie in a Dutch oven, but you've done it in a pie pan and just put it in the oven. We are going directly in the oven. Kent, give the nice folks a pep talk that they can do this.
Sure. I wish they made them Dutch ovens like this Pyrex so you could peek under there and say, ooh, that crust is brown. It's just right. But I'm going to show you a tip when this goes to cooking. That is foolproof. Put it on a tall trivet, because that's what you're going to need to use if you're cooking pie. Tall, which is probably 5 1/4 inches. We laid a pretty good line of coals around the bottom edge, right about the edge of the trivet itself, in line with the Dutch oven. Now, this wood we're burning today is some old oak, so I made it a little heavier than I would if it would have been mesquite. Then we put a pretty good layer on top. We will have to rotate as we go through this process. Rule for me on Dutch oven and temperature control, hand width here. Can you hold it more than 5 seconds? I don't think so, but you got to check everywhere itself, because if you can hold it for more than 5 seconds, you're not cooking, you're just barely warming. We've probably been on about 5 or 6 minutes, and it's probably time to rotate that, but we're going to check it and make sure we're getting a little bubbling action going around. So let's rotate it around, and then we'll rotate the lid the opposite direction. We're getting a little light up here on top. You can see things are beginning to ash out just a little, so we're going to add a little more heat to the top. The bottom is still pretty good, and remember, that pie crust is thin. I don't want to burn it. I'm going to give you this tip, and it is probably the biggest tip in pie making and pie cooking. So lift that lid off there when we know that that crust is beginning to set on top. Put your finger over there to the edge, not on the Dutch oven, but on the edge of the pie crust. The bottom will firm, and the sides, when the bottom is near done, it won't have no give to it. See, we're getting some color on here. Remember that tip I showed you? Let's look over here. Things is beginning to spring back a little. What that Dutch oven is trying to tell me, that bottom crust is 97.3% done. So we're going to take it off the bottom. Even though we take it off them coals, don't mean it ain't cooking. That thing is still hot. So we're going to set it over here off the coals. I'm going to brown that top just a little more. We're going to let that pie cool, and then I'm going to cut it and eat it.
You just went through, and the biggest part is to touch the pie and give it a slight press down where that top and bottom crust meet, like we were talking about before. If it doesn't give, if you start it feeling to set up and it doesn't squish back down, you know you're getting close before you take it off the bottom heat. Then the easy part is just allowing that top heat to brown it however much you want on top, correct? One thing we forgot to mention too is that as it's cooking, as that outside edge is setting up, like any baked good, edge will start separating from the outside of the Dutch oven, so you'll see it kind of pull in just slightly, and so that's another indicator that it's getting ready.
Because there is separation. The knife fits between there. See there? Probably one of the most important things after this is letting it cool enough it can be cut.
We may be rushing this a little bit. It's not completely cool, but
we're gonna give it a shot. That first one may tear up. That first piece is hard to get out of a Dutch oven.
Does it cut like pie?
It cuts just like pie.
But show me that bottom crust after.
See that color? That's what we're after.
That one was better.
There's a piece of pie.
Ooh.
That is what you
That's
call.
a good.
See there? There is no burn on the bottom. The tip always works.
You can actually feel and taste the flakes and the layers in this crust. That's why I like it.
See them little flaky layers in there? Anybody can put filling in a pie, but can you make crust? Me, I don't have time to visit much anymore, so I'll let you sign off this week while I eat pie.
God bless you all. We appreciate it so much for sticking around and watching our stuff. And be sure to subscribe for more tips on cowboy cooking, outdoor cooking, cast iron, good food. What else?
Pie!
And pie.
Yes. Day. Oh, honey, don't you love a pie day? Pie day. Oh, we're back, folks. You ever been horseback for a long time in the hot summertime? And you thinking, whew, there's some parts of me that are hurting. I don't know what I'm going to do. There is some chafing going on. Well, many a cowboy has come over here to camp with that problem, and that could be a little embarrassing at times. But what do you tell them? Hey, get your handful of cornstarch and go on. You'll be good with it.